I mentioned these individuals earlier. These are all attorneys licensed to practice in the state of Pennsylvania, state of Ohio, and several other jurisdictions. Adam Levitt from DiCello, Levitt, Jeffrey Goodman to Adam's left, to Jeff's left, Robert J. Mongeluzzi, and Mark DiCello. And we're all set on this end? Fine. Everybody understands we're going to have brief remarks from counsel, and then we will be opening up for Q&A. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Today we announced the filing of one of the largest product liability cases in history. On June 14th of 2017, a deadly fire raced through the Grenfell apartment building in London. It killed 72 and injured over 100. Although the devastation may have occurred abroad, the decisions that led to it took place here in America. And the lawsuit that has been filed here in Philadelphia seeks justice for the victims of Grenfell. The complaint that we have filed is on behalf of 69 of the families who lost loved ones and 177 of the survivors who have sustained life-altering injuries. It is filed here in the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia, and it names 3 defendants. The first defendant is Arconic, Inc. and 2 of its related entities. Arconic is a Pennsylvania-based corporation. The second defendant is Celotex Corporation, another Pennsylvania-based corporation in Malvern. And the third defendant is Whirlpool Corporation from Michigan. The fire that occurred on June 14th of 2017 started in a refrigerator that was manufactured by a Whirlpool subsidiary, Hotpoint. The fire started because there were flammable plastic components in the back of the refrigerator which ignited and caused a fire. That fire spread to the exterior of the building, and that is when it truly became uncontrollable. Once the fire reached the insulation that was manufactured by Celotex and the cladding that was manufactured by Arconic, it raced uncontrollably throughout the building due to their flammable nature. It turned the Grenfell Tower into a cylinder of fire, which entrapped the victims and killed 72. This case is filed in America to hold the American corporations responsible for the devastation and tragedy that they caused. We bring counts of product liability and seek compensatory and punitive damages on behalf of the victim and against these corporations to ensure that no other community has to endure another Grenfell. My colleagues are going to answer some remaining questions and explain some of the remaining theories of liability.
Thank you. While the flames began in a flat in Grenfell Tower in London, the spark for this fire, this inferno, occurred in Pennsylvania. The cause and origin of the deadly spread of this fire were the decisions made by Pennsylvania corporations in Pennsylvania regarding products that they now have withdrawn from the market because of their dangerous, defective, and flammable nature. There are 2 products and 2 Pennsylvania corporations that I want to talk about. These victims have sued the American corporations who caused and spread this deadly fire here in their own backyard. Arconic was founded in 1888 as the Pittsburgh Reduction Company. It has been in Pennsylvania for over 120 years. It became Aluminum Corporation of America in 1909 and Alcoa in 1999. The product here, Aranabon PE, is a product that was designed by a Pennsylvania corporation, tested by Pennsylvania corporation, decisions made as to its sales were made by a Pennsylvania corporation. Rainabon PE, before Grenfell, was not sold to be put on residential towers in the United States, but Arconic sold it abroad for use in residential towers, knowing that it was flammable, it could spread fire, and it could and would kill. Arconic, 12 days after this accident, acknowledged that they supplied the Rainabon PE and that they've taken the decision to no longer provide this product in any high-rise applications, regardless of local codes and regulations. That was a decision that could have and should have been made, and if it had, 72 people would still be alive today. Celtz has its corporate headquarters in Malvern, Pennsylvania. If you look out the backside of this office building, you could see Malvern in the distance. The Celtz PIR, which was flammable and was used as insulation and sold as insulation and sold as flame retardant when it wasn't, has also been withdrawn from the market. This is a case about two Pennsylvania corporations who sold and supplied dangerous, defective, deadly, and flammable products that they have now both withdrawn from the market. Why Pennsylvania? Safety starts at the top. We intend to prove in this case that decisions were made by Pennsylvania companies in Pennsylvania that caused this horrific inferno. And Pennsylvania has a sincere interest in regulating the conduct of its corporations. We've been asked by the victims to hold these corporations accountable, to make sure that they cannot hide behind international borders, but be held accountable for their conduct. They don't want this to ever happen again. And they bring this claim on behalf of their loved ones who remain forever in their hearts. And I think you see the hearts that we're all wearing. That has been the symbol, the enduring symbol of solidarity for the Grenfell survivors. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark DiCello.
So, the choice of cladding is here. One choice will protect you from fire, the other one will cause an inferno. They look the same, they weigh the same, but one has a flame retardant mineral core, the other one has a flammable polyethylene core. You can't tell by looking at them. You can only tell by the fire. So, Arconic made the decision to sell this. It's the decision to allow this to be sold on a residential tower that created an inferno that killed 72 people. If you go online and look up polyethylene core ACM products, which is what that is, it'll tell you it's highly flammable. And there's always a question of how to make it flame retardant. Arconic knew it, they knew how to make it, they're producing it. The only difference I haven't mentioned is in cost. The cheaper material was used, it was sold. It shouldn't have been sold. It wouldn't have been sold here for this. It was sold there. Arconic guarantees the fire resistance of the Rainabon FR Corps, that should have been used on Grenfell. If that was used, we wouldn't be here. I think there was a question also about bringing this case in the U.S. on behalf of victims overseas. My partner Adam is going to speak to that.
Good morning, everyone. With respect to whether this sort of action has previously been brought, the foreign plaintiff against an American corporation in the United States, or a series of American corporations in the United States, the answer is very clearly yes. This has been done before. Cases like this are brought on behalf of a foreign victim against a U.S. corporation are brought in the United States every single day. We've seen recently with the Indonesian 737 MAX air disaster, those cases are pending in Chicago, Illinois. A previous air disaster, the Lion Air Ethiopia case, is also here in the United States. Here in Pennsylvania, there was a Third Circuit case, Lacey against Cessna, where there were a series of Australian plaintiffs, and the case was allowed to go forward in the United States. Going back several years, there has been case after case after case with European corporations, European individual victims, Uruguayan victims, an in-ray air crash disaster in New Orleans, which was in 1987. This is just a long way of saying what we are doing here, seeking to hold U.S. companies responsible for wrongful conduct that hurt people overseas, happens all the time. And we intend for this to be the next of these cases that hold companies responsible for this type of wrongful conduct.
Thank you. Why don't we switch up here, Adam?
Yes,
I'm gonna
no
take
problem.
Center.
Absolutely.
Why don't you? Okay. We're going to sit down a little bit. We're open for questions.
Bob, are there any area or U.S. Buildings that are rife with this particular cladding and insulation right now?
I'll let Jeff handle that one.
Cladding of this kind is not permitted on high-rise buildings in the United States by most building codes, I believe by all building codes, for the very reason that it is too flammable, and if a fire catches it, it will spread. It is used for various architectural features, signage, stuff like that, but not in high-rises like this in the U.S. for the very reason that we don't want to have a Grenfell here.
And that was the case pre-Grenfell as well?
Yes.
How much cheaper was the cladding?
2 pounds per square meter. So
for the actual full price of the tower, do we know what the price difference would have been?
would have been under 5% of the cladding cost to make it safe.
Can I answer? Gary from BGC. Two quick. Sorry. Okay, two quick questions. One is, you talked about compensatory and punitive damages. What sort of numbers do you have in mind
I'll handle
if
that.
you're successful in bringing the case? And secondly, how does your case, how is it affected by the criminal prosecutions that are under investigation in the UK and of course the public inquiry?
I'll handle that. And so the question was, in case somebody couldn't hear it, compensatory and punitive damages, do we have numbers in mind? I'll answer that first. In Pennsylvania, there isn't a specific number that you are allowed to ask for. That is within the jury's discretion, using their common sense as to how they value lives and how they value pain and suffering. So that could vary widely. You could certainly search the articles regarding what other cases have resolved for in the past and what verdicts have. Certainly there have been very significant verdicts in Pennsylvania. Your second question, which was how would it affect any parallel inquiry, this case will not. All the time in America, there are cases, civil cases pending while there are both governmental investigations going on or perhaps criminal investigations going on. and they run on totally different tracks. They do not impact each other one way or the other. Questions?
That's from Channel 4 UK. The number of families that have signed on is 69. You said that's not all of the families. There was some concern that there was fear there'd be a distraction from the public inquiry and the ongoing criminal investigations. Can you speak to the concerns there?
Yeah, so 69 of the 72 families that have lost loved ones are named as plaintiffs, or the estates of the decedents are named as plaintiffs in this litigation. For the 3 that are not part of it, everyone makes their own decisions when it comes to whether to proceed with litigation and how to proceed. And then the 177 survivors, those are survivors who were in the tower that night. Claims can't necessarily be brought on behalf of everybody that was possibly impacted in any way, just due to the different limitations of who has recognizable claims under the law. 177, which is, again, virtually a unanimous amount of the survivors. Not all of them, but just about. We don't think that this case would be a distraction at all from what's going on in the London inquiry and parallel criminal investigations, as Bob said. This won't impact those investigations. Those investigations won't impact this. They move down parallel tracks.
And let me add that we respect everybody's right to make their own personal choice, which can only be right for them.
You mentioned that it's one of the biggest, or the biggest product liability case in history, U.S. history. I appreciate they can't put a number on it, but are there any precedent cases so we can get an idea of damages in the end?
There is not another case that can truly be compared to the magnitude of the horror that the victims had to endure and the outrageousness of the conduct of the defendants. So I don't think that we can give you a case that would be a fair comparison to this. And that's driven by the magnitude of the tragedy and the extent of the outrageous conduct.
And just for UK audiences, can you give us an idea of the timeline of this case now, since it's different in each country? When will it go before it?
Sure. I could give you the normal Philadelphia timelines, which is you file a complaint, you get a case management conference at month 3 or 4. This will be put on a complex track. You generally, I say generally, have 18 months for discovery. That would take you to month 21. Plaintiff's expert reports month 22. Defendant's expert reports month 23. Pretrial conference month 26 or 27, and normally a trial at month 30 through 32. It could be a little bit longer with more complex cases.
And was there a time frame that this had to be filed by because of any such communication?
Yes. Jeff will handle that.
Yeah, the statute of limitations in Pennsylvania is 2 years from the date of the incident. The fire, of course, happened on June 14th. Technically, since it started at 1 a.m. London time, that was June 13th here in Pennsylvania. That is the statute of limitations to file. So this case has been filed in advance of that. Should also mention, Bob mentioned the filing of a complaint to start the case. The complaint was filed. Sorry that we don't have copies here for everyone. It's 500 pages long. It is available on our website. There's a link to it for anybody who wishes to view it.
At smbb.com.
How's the litigation being funded?
Litigation costs, as is traditional in litigation, are fronted by the attorneys.
Yes.
Sharon Kelly regarding, will your suit explore any evidence that our kind of stock victim combustible panels in the UK market?
I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry. Will your suit explore any evidence that Arconic makes stock to dump the combustible panels in the UK?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Because several of the key markets had already ruled the panels were against building codes and regulations.
Yeah, we'll be pursuing as many witnesses as it takes to prove our case against Arconic. We'll follow that where it goes. To the extent that we find that Arconic was dumping this on the market, as you phrased it, then we'll deal with that. But right now, our issue is we have to get to the truth of this, and we have to make sure that in as much as safety starts from the top at Arconic, that this never happens again.
Do you have a sense of how many witnesses may be involved in this case?
Many.
More than the people
Many.
in this room.
Like compared to the building collapse case, is this...
I would suspect that there would be significantly more.
I wanted to see if you could just real quick sort of walk me through how you guys ended up getting this work. You know, American firm
an incident happening in London?
Well, our firms have both been engaged in litigation that's national. We have international clients as well. So it's pretty common for us to be working with firms that have offices around the world. So when this event happens, lawyers reach out, and they happen to reach out to us.
Is there any litigation in Britain pending?
There is a public inquiry in Britain, which is pending in connection with this. That is the government investigation process that they go through. I don't believe there are any personal injury or wrongful death cases filed in the UK.
Are there any expected, do you know?
There's none that we know of at this time.
Okay. And do you know, do they have a similar statute of limitations deadline?
You would have to ask one of the UK lawyers about the details of their system.
None of us have solicitor's licenses here.
It's a government investigation, government criminal investigation. What's the best way to characterize it?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a criminal investigation. The best analogy I could draw to America would kind of be like an NTSB investigation. It's a government-led investigation into what happened. There certainly may be criminal implications from it, but it's not a prosecution per se. And I see the BBC reporter nodding in agreement, so I think I got that right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's still ongoing, that investigation?
Yes,
Correct.
it's divided into different phases.
Anything else?
Actually, if you don't mind, how long did the fire burn? How long did it take from the refrigerator to till it was put out?
Go on.
The fire started at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning inside one of the flats. It made its way to the exterior around 1:08 a.m. And the building, I don't have an exact timestamp for that picture there, but the building was completely under siege by the fire within moments after that. It took hours to put the fire out. You can see in the picture there, it's light out. It was early to mid-morning before the fire was truly put out.
This fire spread with incredible speed and raced its way up the tower. The problem with Celotex insulation and Arconic Rainabond PE cladding is they burn like gasoline. They didn't retard the flames, they accelerated the flames. And that caused this fire to spread, propagate, and trap those unfortunate souls in the building with no way out.
Yeah, don't forget it wasn't even 2 weeks before they were through that cladding, not just from the market, but globally. It was a decision to remove it from the market globally, and that was again was inside of 2 weeks. So it didn't take much investigating from Arconic to realize this is really, really bad.
And remind me what year the building was built?
The building was refurbished in a project that started in 2012 and went through about 2016. This cladding and insulation were not part of the original building construction. They were incorporated as part of that 2012 refurbishment.
I received, unless anybody has a question, I received a question electronically for any of the council to explain the caption, Gloria Trevisan.
Gloria Trevisan was one of the victims of the fire. She was a 26-year-old architect who perished along with her boyfriend. They lived in a flat on the 23rd floor.
Point around.
She is this victim here. Next to her is her fiance, Marco Guittardi. Ms. Trevisan is the first plaintiff on the caption, simply because that was the first estate that was opened in this case. As many of the reporters here probably know, there have been statements to the public inquiry. There have been statements given regarding the horror that some of these victims endured. Hers was a particularly compelling one, as were many of the other victims.
Can you talk about some of the injuries that folks sustained?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course, 72 people lost their lives because of this fire. Some were that night, or I should say that morning, and others were in the days, weeks, and months that followed. The survivors of this have burn injuries, smoke inhalation injuries. One of the problems with the Celotex insulation is that it emits cyanide gas. That was the cause of several of the fatalities, and that is the cause of lasting injuries with the victims.
What floor did this fire start?
The way that they name the floors is a little confusing because it's not as though Unit 501 is on the 5th floor, so it's a little bit tricky. It was in flat 16, which most people call the 4th floor.
And the building has how many?
What you will hear referred to as the 23rd floor is the top floor, but people say the building is 24 stories. The reason for that is in the UK they call the first floor 0 and the second floor 1.
So the fire started on what we would call the 4th floor, but they might have called the 3rd.
Other way around, I believe.
Your fifth floor.
Our 5th floor, their 4th.
Oh, 5th and 4th. Okay. And then
Flat number 16.
Okay. Can I ask you a question about the, I'm just getting a question. Celotex is owned by a French company, is that based in?
Yeah. In 2012, a French company, Saint-Gobain, that manufactures various building products, purchased Celotex. Celotex North America, or I believe Saint-Gobain / Celotex Corp. North America, is based in Malvern, Pennsylvania.
Anything else? Any other remote questions?
I have no more. We could take one more question. Counsel will also be around if anybody has additional questions, and you also know how to reach us. The entire 500-plus page complaint, with the redactions that I previously noted, of the names of the minors and their addresses, is now posted to SMBB, Saltz, Mongeluzzi, Barrett Bendesky.com, as well as the visuals that you see on display here. Should we obtain additional information by way of filings, we'll also be posting to the website as well.
Yeah. It's on our site also.
It's also on.
It's also on the DiCello
Levitt
website.
DiCelloLevitt.com as well.
We do have additional copies of the press release here, and we thank everybody sincerely.
Thank you.
For taking the time to join us today.
Thanks.
Can we